Hello, and welcome to the Soul Elevation Podcast, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I want to talk to you today about sunlight. So, this is something that we talked about a little bit in my last live, and I can link that in the notes when I'm finished. But that live was really around kind of preparedness in terms of the solar flare activity and the geomagnetic activity that's happening on the planet. And I had said um, during that live that I have a practice of what I consider drinking in the light, and that I would talk about that in a different live. So here we are. Um, so whenever it is sunny in the mornings, and I tend to do this more in the warm weather times when it's cold outside. First of all, where I live, when it's cold outside, it tends to be pretty cloudy. Typically, we have a lot of cloudy days when it starts to be cold. But where I live right now in North America, it is warm and a lot of days are sunny. So in the morning, when it's sunny, if I have time, I make a point of sitting in the morning sunlight. And there is a yogic practice called sun gazing, which is, a half an hour after sun, like between the sun rising and up to a half an hour later, and half an hour before sunset through sunset. This yogic practice that's been around for ages is looking at the sunlight, like looking directly at the sun, but only at those times, like within a half an hour of sunrise and sunset. Otherwise, you want to definitely make sure that you're keeping your eyes closed when you're sitting in the sunlight. You don't want to look directly at the sun. But personally, for me, because when the sun is rising in the sky, it's kind of hard for me to know how long it's been in the sky because it has to rise over some houses. I just keep my eyes closed. Personally, that's my preference, but you may feel drawn to sun gazing, in which case you may want to do a little bit of research about that, and maybe that's a better avenue for you. But again, you just want to be really careful with that you're only doing that in the very early times or right when the sun's going down. So what I mean by drinking in the sunlight, the way that I do this is that as the direct sunlight is coming into view, I just keep my eyes closed and I sit in the sunlight. But I'm doing more than just sitting in the light. In my own consciousness, with my awareness, with what I'm staying aware of, I'm imagining, and it really goes beyond the imagination, because I really feel that I can perceive this happening through my intention. But I feel that I am drawing the sunlight through my pores and in through all the layers of my skin, in through, my muscles and the fascia and the tissues. And I'm drawing it as deeply into the center of me as I can. Now, I'm staying relaxed as I do this because it sounds like something that maybe I'm trying to force because of the intentionality. But just like with meditation, if you're an experienced meditator, you'll know that push pull between intentionality and wanting to be the creator, wanting to be conscientious about what you're doing in your meditation, and that relaxation, the surrender. It's a dance. So those things may sound like they're two different things, like being relaxed, being surrendered, and being intentional. And maybe that sounds a little bit like trying to control. So and I catch myself in this dance where, sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm really just trying to be too controlling in this practice. So I need to let go. I need to release. But it's also wanting the act to be more than just, let me just sit here in the sun. Now that has its benefits. So you can passively sit in the morning sun and you're still going to absorb the goodness of the light, the nourishment of the light. But I feel that you can take this even further through your intentionality. This goes for healing as well. So if you're any sort of healing energy practitioner, or if you've explored energy healing and practices of energy healing, the whole context, the whole concept of energy healing is tuning into yourself as energy and like noticing the energy that you are beyond the physical and then directing that energy. So it takes this kind of perception, or at least this is how I experience it, like kind of coming out of the identification of the physical body, tuning into that energy that's coursing through the body, and then being able to direct it. So if you're doing healing for someone else, a lot of people, most of the time we do that through our hands. So we're directing the energy into the heart and then directing and guiding, moving that energy through the arms, through the hands, and into the other person or the animal or the plant, whoever we're trying to help. But you can also do this with your self healing. So if you're not feeling well or you have an injury, you can just be quiet, be still within yourself, tune into the awareness that you are. You can start to perceive the energy that you are that's running through the body. And then you can start moving that energy. And so let's say you have like a sprained ankle. You tune into that energy. You feel that you're through your attention and intention that you're gathering that energy, and then you're directing it through your awareness. You're directing it down the body and into the ankle, and just through your mindfulness, your intention, your awareness, your stillness, you are sending energy where it's most needed. And then the physical aspects of your body then know what to do with that energy. So it's not having to be too rational minded about it to say, okay, now the energy's here and now, it's going into this layer and this level and this muscle or this tendon or whatever. You don't necessarily need to know all of the ins and outs of the anatomy of the body, but you can just feel your way through it. Um, there's a guest I've had on the podcast a couple of times, and it's been a very long time since he's been on, but John Lockley. And he's a shaman, a South African shaman, and he wrote a book, and I wish I could remember what the book was called. The Leopard Warrior. I'm impressed with myself that I remembered that. It's been a long time. It's a great book. I haven't, but it's been a long time since I read it. Um, but he talks about how before he became a shaman, before his spiritual awakening, he was a military nurse, I think it was. And he was working with these, indigenous warriors, basically, these indigenous peoples who were injured from the war. And he was, had a very Western approach. He was of European descent, and he was interested in observing their process of them as they're these wounded soldiers, that they would be in this stillness. They would spend time focusing on the injury, focusing on what needed healing. And he's like, they healed so much more rapidly than the ones of European descent who didn't have that mindfulness, and they weren't really participating. This is the whole thing. It's participating in the healing, if that's what we're thinking about, or again, like sitting in the sunlight rather than, and it's fine to just sit there in the morning sun. But if you want to take it a step further, you participate in it. You're inside your body and you're working with the light. You're drawing that light in. You're using your imagination and your intention and your awareness to feel that you're pulling that light in deeply into your body. And it is amazing what your intention and your imagination does. You'll be able to feel it. There are all kinds of scientific studies about this. And I don't spend time like memorizing and poring over scientific studies myself, but I do run across them. But what I believe in is my experience. I mean, I'm interested in learning what science is exploring, but I'd rather spend my time in the experience and being my own laboratory and seeing how things work for me. And that's what I want to share, because I've had such really, beautiful, powerful experiences of really feeling that I'm pulling that light in. And so you may be thinking, like, why? Why do we bother with the sunlight? Well, the sun is doing a lot of activity. It's sending a lot of things to us right now. So all those solar flares that we've been talking about, and I know you've heard other people talking about this, the Earth is getting hit with a lot of solar flares. That is energy. I mean, you can go on these, you can see what NASA is recording with this. They are showing, you can see these bursts of energy. So it's light, but the sun is emitting these like intense bursts of energy, and then that light is going, directly into our atmosphere. It's not always going directly, it's not a direct Earth hit a lot of times, because the sun is so much bigger than the Earth. So sometimes we have like coronal mass ejections, and they're not facing the Earth, or we have solar wind and it's not necessarily facing the Earth. But a lot of this right now is Earth facing, and that means that it travels through space and it comes into our atmosphere. And it's information. Light is information. So this is a huge part of it. Can be a huge benefit to you if you're on the ascension path, if you're knowingly on the ascension path, because I think everybody's on an ascension path, they just don't know. That can be a huge tool to help you. So I hope that you will take advantage of getting out into the sun. And, in my opinion, you want to protect those eyes, be careful, about looking directly at it. And thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you many, many blessings.